Hello everybody and welcome to the final of our Golden Opportunities sessions. This one about administrative roles in guiding. So we're going to be hearing about some finance and about Go and just some more general admin roles. So the reason we're putting on these sessions is to try and find roles that people might not have otherwise considered. Obviously lots of people are in unit-based guiding roles, but there's also lots of other opportunities to get involved volunteering more flexibly, and kind of using more specific skills that people might have. So this is the final of these sessions. So hopefully it'll be useful and people will find out all about these administrative roles, and potentially make a big difference to guiding in their local area or maybe even higher up. So we will hand over to Jenny first, and Jenny is our Region Membership Systems Advisor, and she's going to be talking us through some of the administrative roles. So over to you, Jenny.
Good evening. I'm just going to share my screen. So Emma, can you give me a thumbs up that that's okay?
Yeah, that's fab. I can see that.
Brilliant. Okay, so I've got 3 roles that I'm going to talk to you about this evening, and they're the Go Coordinator, the Inquiry Coordinator, and an ID Verifier. At some point, I've held all or still hold these roles, and I've asked Abby to come along tonight. She's on my team with Wirral County, and she's one of our division inquiry coordinators. So she's going to talk a little bit about what it means to be an inquiry coordinator. The roles are split. They can be shared by one person. We do have a lot of people that do have all 3 roles, but the idea about having a team means that we can operate more flexibly. So each of these roles can be done in isolation. The Go Coordinator is there to support all Go usage within the area, and that can be at a division or a county level. The Inquiry Coordinator is there to support anybody that is interested in joining Girl Guiding. So that could be to support the leaders, the commissioners, or the individuals themselves. And then the ID Verifier is responsible for our disclosure checks, part of our safe practice that we have within Girl Guiding. And that can be for new volunteers, but also rechecks for existing volunteers. Looking at the Go Coordinator role description on the Girl Guiding website, these are just a few of the things that I've picked out. Really, it's about ways to support your team. So this is leaders, assistant leaders, coordinators for things like leadership qualification, for training administration, absolutely all parts of everything that is done within Go, including the annual subscriptions process. And this list is by no means definitive. The great thing about these roles is that they are flexible. It is how you wish to work with your commissioner and the support that your commissioner needs. And I think that's something that's really, really exciting about these roles, is they're not as prescriptive as some others. That role description, though, sounds a little bit, well, what does that really mean that we do? So some of the things that we might do is add trainings to volunteers' records. So if a volunteer attends a first response course within the county, the Go Coordinator might put on their training qualifications. They could help leaders who are using the Go programme tool. We've got this fantastic new part of Go, which is the online residential event notification. But as with any part of a new system, that is going to need some support as leaders start to use it. So that could be part of the Go Coordinator's role. Throughout the subscriptions process, it can be looking at who hasn't viewed their invoice, helping people to view their invoice and to check that it's correct. Sometimes it's about looking about what the data says. I remember one when I first started was it said that somebody had been doing their LQ for 45 years. They really hadn't, because I actually knew them as a qualified leader. So we were able to get that all nicely tidied up on their record, which made them very, very happy. It's a role where you never know what is going to happen next. And I think that's part of what makes it so exciting to the people that have been doing it, because I should say we've had some people doing this role for a very long time. So I spoke to the team in the region and asked them exactly why they do it. And we got some really, really good feedback. I think my playing Miss Marple to investigate about a volunteer being active pending is one of my favourite quotes. But I think as well, it shows the range of what people do. Also, and this is something that Abby can talk about as well, is that the role can be done remotely. You can be supporting an area that you don't actually live in. It can be a way of keeping in touch with people if you've moved on and you can't take on a unit role where you've moved to. You can still support and stay involved in girl guiding with any of the Go admin roles. Does anybody have any questions? Brilliant. Okay, so moving on to the inquiry coordinator role, and I have to say, I think this is one of my favourite roles because this really is all about getting new members into our organisation, be that young members or volunteers. And the role of the inquiry coordinator can again be customised as to whether or not you actually can even be involved in contacting the volunteers first of all when they inquire to support your commissioner, or if you're more involved on the young member side of it. And that can be anything from taking phone calls from leaders who can't get young members on to go, or actually talking to the parents, helping them to understand which unit they really want their daughter to go to because of availability of time or location. And the inquiry coordinator role is really, really important at the minute because we know we've got a lot of units that have some spaces that can take on young members, and it's supporting them in that process. Some of the typical things that we might do in that role is talking to the commissioners about how we can get our volunteers through, how can we get recruitment checks done, and how we can get disclosure checks done. We do also sadly get quite a lot of duplicate inquiries, which means that leaders can be kind of chasing their tail, trying to figure out, is this person coming to my unit or are they going to another unit? And that's where the inquiry coordinator can be very supportive to make sure that the leader is getting the girl that wants to come to them, but also that the parents are not getting confused and that the duplicates are resolved. That's a real kind of get involved and get your hands dirty one. In terms of some of the quotes about why our team do this currently, it was really what they all spoke about was how wonderful it was to be talking to young members coming into the organisation and the volunteers that are wanting to join us as well. So helping them to find out about the right unit, getting them the communication with the commissioner, and really making sure that they get the right volunteering opportunity. Abby, could you talk for a little bit about why you took on the division inquiry coordinator a couple of years ago?
Yeah, so I think I've been doing it for 6 years now. I wasn't actually living in on the Wirral at the time. I was living in Scotland, but I was asked by one of the county coordinators to get involved, and I just thought it'd be quite a useful thing to do. I grew up on the Wirral. I knew a lot of the leaders involved in Wallasey Division, and I think we've all had the frustrations of being on Go and noticing that you're maybe contacting a young person and it turns out they're registered at 3 different units or whatever, or you're trying to track down a young person who's moved into the area, or you're trying to coordinate with somebody. And it's just been quite a useful role to do. So I don't actually live on the Wirral anymore. I live in Manchester, but I still am the division inquiry coordinator for Wallasey Division, which it's not a problem at all that I don't live in the area. It's very easy to do remotely, and I've done it remotely the entire time that I've been the inquiry coordinator. It helps that I know a lot of the leaders involved. My mum is the division commissioner, which is helpful, but she wasn't when I started the role. But knowing the leaders involved is quite helpful, and everybody is so friendly anyway. I tend to try to do division inquiry coordinator work once a month. I sort of set aside one morning once a month to go through every unit just to check where people are up to, and then in the meantime between them, responding to individual queries that some leaders may have. I think, like what Jenny said, duplicate inquiries are one of the things that take the most time, because you do end up with some girls' parents who are especially keen and register multiple times in multiple different units if they haven't had a response. But it doesn't have, it's not as much work as I think it may seem when you sort of say, oh, dealing with inquiries for an entire division. It's not as much work or as big of a task or as big of a mountain to climb as I think it might seem, like trying to deal with all the inquiries, because as guiding leaders, everybody is so proactive anyway that you're very much a supportive role. You may get a couple of leaders who need a bit of extra help when it comes to dealing with their inquiries if they've fallen slightly behind, but the majority of people are so proactive anyway that you're very much there as a supporting role and a point of contact if they need a bit of extra help, or if you're finding that some girls maybe are ready to move up to a different level if they've passed the rainbow age, and you can help them find a unit that best fits them depending on their age or their location as well.
Fabulous. Thank you, Abby. I think the important thing with what Abby's saying as well is that on the Wirral we chose to have a division coordinators because it can be a more manageable part of the role, and I think that's really, really important to look at. It's a conversation about how you wish to work with your commissioner, and us having the division roles has really worked well on the Wirral. But as Abby also says, it's very flexible and it can be done within your own time. So that's fab. Thank you for that, Abby. The last role to talk about is the ID verifier. So this is quite a formal role because it is a legal process of getting a disclosure check done. We need to support the applicants and we need to ensure that they understand the process, and they need to make sure that they can bring the correct documentation, which is proven to be one of our biggest and most interesting challenges at the minute, with everything having gone online and people not having done the things that they would have done over the last 15 months. It is proving an interesting challenge to get people to be able to do their disclosure checks. Typically, you work very closely with your commissioner to make sure that they're being done in a timely manner and that it's being dealt with appropriately. You can make contact with the person, especially a new volunteer. And what's really exciting is you get to be part of that warm welcome that Guiding give to new volunteers, and to really get to make sure to have a chat with that volunteer, enthuse about the range of opportunities that we do have at the same time as doing the process. And you would then just follow up on that process to make sure that it's done and to chase it along if it seems to be taking too long of an amount of time. When asked about why to do it, one of the quotes that did come back was that somebody said that they can no longer commit to doing face-to-face guiding, but this is a way that they can continue to contribute to the organisation. And certainly the other thing with the ID verifiers is that you are helping to keep our young members safe. So that's a very important part of the role. When I tried to look at some of the skills that you might need to be any of these roles, it was an equal mix of tenacious and curious, because sometimes you really have to be Miss Marple and sometimes you have to really be incredibly patient with the parents when they're asking that they want their daughter to join very, very quickly, which is such a wonderful thing, but we need to make sure that we get them into the right unit. You also need to be flexible, but have a great idea of good communication skills and problem solving. The thing that you don't need to do at the beginning of the role is to be a Go guru. That is absolutely guaranteed for when you finish being either a Go coordinator or inquiry coordinator. That will be a must. That will be an absolute definite. You will have earned that badge. I think it's good to understand the support that we give you in these roles as well. Within North West region, you will receive training within your county or from a region level. You'll get support from myself as the lead volunteer and our dedicated staff member we have in the office. We have got a great knowledge hub on Facebook, which includes people with 20+ years of experience as Go and commissioners. We have termly meetings where we all get together and talk about what's happened, our best practice, share great ideas about things that have worked within your own area. And we do also receive regular targeted updates from headquarters about changes that are happening within our role. So there's a great amount of communication around the role to support you in it. Does anybody have any questions? No, fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenny. So we will go over to Catherine now. So Catherine will talk about finance roles. So I'm just going to spotlight you, Catherine.
Oh, thank you very much.
Oh, no, I can't do that. Caroline, can you spotlight Catherine? I know it was.
The only thing I haven't got, thank you, I haven't got a presentation, but I do want to at some point be able to go and have a look at the national website just to point where some of the finance resources are. But first of all, what I would say is I'm here because the other hat I wear is chair of finance for the region, I'm also a rainbow leader, and that's why the background is what it is in my house at the moment, because we've done 12 months of Zoom calls for rainbows, but we are now back outside. Helping with the finance can be really at any level. And I would say for any unit leader, anybody who puts their hand up, whether it's a parent or somebody else who's willing to help and says, yes, I'll help you manage the bookkeeping, it's an absolute godsend. It really is. You do the role because you enjoy offering the guiding experience. And unfortunately, alongside that is somebody has to keep track of the finances. So anybody who's willing to do that for you, it's a real help. What I would say is, we talk about the skills. Definitely you need to have a certain confidence with numbers, but you certainly don't need to be a bookkeeper, and you definitely don't need to be an accountant. All you just need is a little bit of common sense and definitely some patience. For a unit, they're really just going to be tracking what's coming in, and that's usually their weekly, monthly, termly subscriptions from the girls, and then what's going out. And that's going to be things like rent for wherever the meeting is. It will be costs of materials to do the activities, maybe some badges. And then the really big expense for any unit is going to be the annual subscription. And it's really just balancing that for the unit leader. Where I think anybody with some experience or willingness to do the job can add value is very much in the planning stage, because at the beginning of term, at the beginning of the year, most unit teams will sit down and plan what they're going to do, what activities, what we're going to do, are we going to have some outings for the term ahead, for the year ahead. Leaders are not generally minded to do a budget at that stage for the whole year ahead, but anybody who could really come in and help them with that planning would add so much value to the unit. It would then mean that we could actually charge the right amount of subscription. We could actually plan for that annual subscription, that annual membership fee that the unit needs to pay. And that's very often where you may have the skill set as a leader to really deliver excellent experiences, but if you're not really that bothered about the finances, that may get left, and it does for most of us. It's the last thing that we want to do. It's sitting there for 6 weeks before we pick it up. And for anybody who does the role, it isn't something that you have to spend huge amounts of time on. You know, you could pick it up once a month. You have a meeting with the leader, and you agree when they're going to hand over some information, balance the books, check the bank statements, and at the end of the year, you have a lovely spreadsheet, and the resources are all on the website. So if I can share my screen, let me try, and I go in there. Is that going to work? Let me know if you can see it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Thank you. So making guiding happen, running your unit, stay with me, finance, insurance and property. And within this section of the website, there are so many resources. Unit finances. Within that, there's a beautiful spreadsheet. You put your numbers in and it will do the final figures for you for your year end automatically. There's training usually within districts, divisions, counties, but there's a lot of information here just to help you, to get you started, and it's really worthwhile. If you want to do something a little bit more challenging, then there are roles as treasurer in your district or your division. To a certain extent, you're doing some of the same role. You are managing the income and the expenditure for that division, say, over the 12 months. You will be involved in the planning so that you help them see what budget they need, what have we already got in the bank, what are we going to need to collect, how are we going to make this event break even? Do we need to subsidize? And you will then start to bring a lot more of your knowledge and experience into that role as you start to help them think about that budget and how they're going to manage those finances. The treasurer may or may not be a trustee of the district or division. Very often they are not, but again, that's really going to depend on the constitution of that team. As I said before, my role is chair of finance. Now, at county level, you may have a chair of finance. Certainly we do it at region. And in those roles, I am a trustee. What I would also say, when we're talking about what we've been talking about here about the checks and the DBS and the things that Jenny's just been talking about, as a helper in the unit doing the bookkeeping, managing the finances, you would be subject to DBS checks, and you would be expected to do some of the online basic CBT trainings. You don't need to meet the girls at all in the role, but you do need to understand guiding and our principles and our values. So there will be an expectation that you would do those things. The other thing that I would definitely say, anybody who gets involved with the finances, especially at unit level, would really need to know is gift aid. That for every unit that can do it, adds so much into the coffers for any unit, and it's really valuable. So setting it up, you will again, there's lots of training in divisions and counties about how to do gift aid, how to set it up. And it is a bit of paperwork, I have to say. When I did it the first time for my unit, it was a case of a couple of hours, nice cup of coffee, sitting down in front of the computer and putting it all in. But once I'd got through the process that my unit is now registered, then it is an annual task that I simply put in all the details, and a few weeks later, there's some money in the Rainbow account from HMRC, and I'm getting some tax back, and it really makes a big difference to the unit. So that, I think, is one of the other bits that I would say makes a big difference. And if somebody doesn't even want to do particularly your day-to-day admin, if somebody is willing to pick up the task of doing your gift aid, then that's also a valuable contribution. It may be something that they just need to do once a year. So again, don't think of looking after the finances as you have to be every week and counting the money. It doesn't have to be that. And it could be simply, could you just do the gift aid for us? You would be surprised how valuable that would be to your unit. How would you get you involved? You only just need to ask. I would say there are not many of us around, really. So if you have someone that would be interested in helping support in any way, the chances are, if they say, I'd be willing to help you with the accounts, again, can be done remotely, don't have to go in. And the way we've had to operate this last 15 months or so, just about everything has been done electronically. Subscriptions have been paid directly into the bank. Anything you've had to buy has been paid out of the bank. So there really isn't a need that you have to visit a unit or anything. So yes, you could do it remotely. And the only downside I would say is if you put your hand up to help at one unit, you could find yourself being asked to help at a few more units along the way. Once somebody knows that you're happy to do it, they keep asking you. I think that's really all I would want to say. Have we got any questions? Have I not covered anything?
No, it doesn't look like it. Okay, so if there's no questions for Jenny or Abby or Catherine, then that means that we're done for this session. As I said, this has been recorded, so if anybody wants to go back and look over any of the information that's been given, then it will be on our YouTube in just a short while. But yeah, thank you so much, Jenny and Abby and Catherine. That's been really interesting, and I'm sure the people who have made it here tonight and the people that will watch it at a later date will agree, and hopefully we'll end up with a big uptake in administrative and finance roles. So yeah, thank you so much everybody for coming and for watching, and for you three for sharing your expertise with us. Thank you.